Hey everybody, Dr. Phil here. This is going to be a video on motivation in the sort of the wider realm and context of organizational behavior. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right. So how do we define motivation more academically? So we think of motivation as a set of energetic forces that originates both within and outside an employee, initiates work-related efforts, and determines its direction, intensity, and persistence. So questions such as, what do you do, and how hard do you do it, and how long do you do it? So again, all of these would be tied to your motivation, right? And certainly the first one, what do you do? That's going to have a big impact on how much, how long you can do it for, and how hard you can do it. So why are some employees more motivated than others? So several theories attempt to summarize the key factors that foster high motivation. We have expectancy theory, we have goal setting theory, we have equity theory, and we'll sort of talk around these a little bit more in the video, and also psychological empowerment. So let's start with expectancy theory. So the idea of this theory is the central tenet is that motivation is fostered when the employee believes three things. The first one is that effort will result in performance. Number two is that performance will result in outcomes. Basically, there's a meaning, and a benefit to the work. And finally, number three, that those outcomes will be valuable. So without any sort of one of those three things, then the employee would be less likely to be motivated. Now, effort is sort of equals performance in the sense that the belief that a high level of effort will lead to the successful performance of a task, right? So expectancy can be shaped by self-efficacy. So things like past accomplishments, how well have you done things in the past? Vicarious experiences, usually sort of through somebody else. Verbal persuasion, and also emotional cues. And some people pick up on emotional cues. Think like emotional intelligence, for example. Some people can be less so. So here we see the sources of self-efficacy again. Past accomplishments, what have you done in the past? Vicarious experiences, again, typically through other people. Verbal persuasion, and also emotional cues. So the analysis of the task requirements, like what is it that we need to do, and the assessment of personal and situational resources kind of tie into this idea, this construct of self-efficacy. So instrumentality, and again, dealing with performance and outcomes. This is the belief that successful performance will result in certain outcomes. So basically, if I do this well, then hopefully, myself, my team, the company, the department will achieve the desired end goals. And valence, the sort of the anticipated value of the outcomes. So if they're positive, then we prefer having the outcome. For example, maybe you get a bump in salary, your salary goes up, you get a bonus. Um, Outcomes that satisfy needs are generally more positively valence. We tend to value those more. But also negative, right? Prefer to not have the outcome. So for example, think about more like the deterrence, right? Things like disciplinary action or termination. And there could also be zero. So there's sort of, maybe a little more disinterested, um, disassociated, i.e., there's no interest in the outcome either way. So you sort of, you're almost indifferent, right? You don't really care either way, whether the outcome occurs or whether it doesn't. And why does pay have such a high valence? Think about why. Well, obviously, certainly in the Western world and in most of the world, money is tied to achievement, is tied to respect, it's tied to freedom, social status. Generally speaking, people sort of assume that, um, notwithstanding maybe generational wealth, if somebody is well off, if they a high earner, if they have a lot of net worth or higher net worth, I should say, those higher net worth people look at and say, oh, I wish I was them, or they're obviously successful, so on and so forth. Now, with expectancy theory, you can sort of see the determinants here of motivational force. And we have the key aspect, which of course is the multiplicative effects. Or you can almost think of this formula as it sort of helps to highlight the maybe the symbiosis and maybe the synergy of expectancy theory, again in the context of motivational force. Um, so this symbol basically in the equation signifies that instrumentalities and valences are judged with various outcomes in mind, And motivation increases as successful performance is linked to more and more attractive outcomes. This is basically a symbol that just means like the total amount of. Motivation is zero if either expectancy, instrumentality, or valence is zero, which if we think about it makes sense. Because if you don't expect good outcomes, if you don't believe that what you're doing is, like if you do it well, will be tied to a good outcome, um, or the value is, you know, is zero, then obviously the motivation to do any of these things would be also zero. So goal setting theory. So motivation is fostered when employees are given specific and difficult goals rather than no goals, easy goals, or just kind of do your best goals. Um, what they're saying here is if it's too easy, people lose motivation. If it's just impossibly difficult, people lose motivation. Or do your best is just that's kind of, it sounds nice, but it's kind of vague. So you're better off giving people, employees in particular, specific and difficult goals. Now, in many organizations, concepts from goal setting theory are applied by encouraging the assignment of what we call SMART goals, and these are used in a lot of institutions. The SMART, of course, is an acronym, and it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, results-based, and time-sensitive. And when you think about all of those adjectives, all things that you would want as part of a good goal. The importance of difficult goals is missing, and SMART goals can be too easy, not always, but sometimes, which may reduce effort and persistence. And again, maybe people potentially get bored. Now, with respect to equity theory, motivation is maximized when an employee's ratio of outcomes to inputs matches those of some comparison other. Thus, motivation also depends on the outcomes received by other employees. So, if you think about it, it does make sense. If we're sort of looking around us, we're looking at other employees, and we're sort of like, okay, what kind of effort did they put in? What outcomes did they get? Versus, what effort did I put in? What outcomes am I getting? Because if they're putting in less work, but their outcomes are better, that could speak to a difference in capability. It could intelligence. It could be maybe they just like better, right? But there's a whole, obviously as human beings, I think we sort of tend to compare ourselves with others almost subconsciously. So you can sort of see the importance of equity theory in that wider realm of organizational behavior. Now, let's talk a little bit about psychological empowerment. An intrinsic form of motivation is derived from the belief that one's work tasks are contributing to some larger purpose, right? Sort of, the bigger picture, right? The greater good kind of thing. And psychological empowerment is generally fostered by four beliefs. The first is meaningfulness, that basically the work is meaningful. Self-determination, you have some sort of control over it. Competence, to what extent are you good or not at what you do? And the impact, right? Like who cares about this job? Like how does it benefit people? And how important is motivation? So does motivation have a significant impact on the two primary outcomes in our integrative model of OB, organizational behavior? Does it correlate with job performance and organizational commitment? Now, answering that question obviously is complicated because motivation is not just one thing, but rather a set of energetic, and I would go as far as to say synergistic forces, right? And if you were to pause this video and really think about that again, everybody's answer to that would be a little different, right? Because what motivates us is different. How long we can stay motivated is different. Some people like money, but most people will tell you over the years, money becomes less important. And they're looking for more, maybe like a familial type connection at work. They're looking for meaningful work, so on and so forth. All right, thanks for watching this quick video, and I will see you all in a future video. Take care.